Greetings once more, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into Golarion and dive back into its history, the history of the Pathfinder game? I am your host, your guide, your emperor here, Tantus Naravan Dracovin. Greetings to you all. Please join me as we explore an ancient and fallen kingdom, Lirgen, today. But before we leave, your time-space gateway that I've opened up, dimensional gateway, to take us in the past, Lirgen. We'll need a little bit of tip from you. Make sure, if you are not subscribed, to do so. It helps support the channel greatly. Leave a comment of what you think of Lirgen, legacy, and the ruins within the Sodden Lands. Let's go. In space. Oh, wait. Once again arriving in Golarion, we find ourselves exploring the path. Lirgen. Well, if you were to explore Lirgen more in depth, to dive into it on your own, where would you go? Lost Kingdom's Inner-Sea World Guide do a very good job of showing off this information here. There are a couple other books that deal with the legacy of afterwards and things like that, but I would recommend these two in particular. So, Lirgen. We can see where it is in the Magendo Gulf, where it was in the Sodden Lands. It's a country that is now gone, destroyed. But this land of fortune, as it was once called, what do we know about it? What can we explore about it? Well, its history is what we can explore. The land of fortune has a deep history that is based upon that entire region. So it's one that is very interesting. If not for what occurred to the north, Rahadu, Lirgen wouldn't exist. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about its history. When Rahadum set in motion its laws of man that outlawed the worship of divinity, basically there was a bunch of people that didn't want to be involved with that. And one of those was an astronomer philosopher named Saoc. Granted, not that he had particularly divine that he worshipped, but he wanted to explore the entire thing about it. Not devout, necessarily, but he did believe that gods were important in civilization. Sort of like, I'm not really devout, but as a philosopher and astronomer, I kind of believe they're there for a reason. I don't want to just not think about them. So basically, this was in 2555. So in 2557, he and a small band of followers went south of the Napsu Mountains to the city of Haladun, and into the vast area to the south. They worshipped their own gods, they constructed a capital and named it Hyrantam. And the nation of Lirgen was formed, a small pocket of civilization. And from here, more people basically went. This was basically the place there. Effectively, anybody that didn't want to follow what was going on in Rahadum, they self-exiled to here. They were a lot of expatriates from the laws of man. So they didn't necessarily adopt Saoc's so-called new paradigm, instead adopting this new paradigm. A simplistic set of laws that started out as a decree that said all citizens were free to worship as they saw fit, and as such worship benefited the common good and greater, as long as such benefited the common good and greater success of Lirgen. More people, though, they have their own ideas, their philosophies, their sciences, and it's kind of increased the culture. And by 2800 AR, it was an autonomous nature. And the philosophical governors and astrological minded that ruled them became the Saoc Brethren, the rulers of this nation. They were still near Rahadum, which became science-oriented because they got rid of the divine, and were kind of peaceful about it, They maintained that. It was kind of seen as like, okay, I understand you guys didn't want to be with us. You took this kind of difficult journey. We'll keep on good terms. So they were able to acquire and manufacture refractor telescopes, lenses, astrolabes, a lot of materials like that. They viewed the stars and planets, divinations, fortunes. Some of the more audacious members even sought technology and magic to create gates to leap from world to world. The land of fortunes. They had prognostications, wealth, a lot of power. And then in the south, they had farmers and herders that looked after things. The swamp walkers, as they were known. The underclass. The less privileged. Basically those that weren't stargazing and instead laborers. People that were basically working down in the more swamp-ridden areas to farm. And being closer to the Mongi Expanse oftentimes had a lot of connection with the various people of there and a lot of their beliefs. And a lot of their beliefs oftentimes went in directions that the people of Lirgen didn't necessarily like. So they kind of were like, no, 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 don't do that. Keep away from that. Even though these were evolving cultures in that regions. But centuries of that didn't wear on very well. So in 3257, about 700 years after Lirgen was founded, a bunch of those people down in the underclass in the south were like, yeah, you know, our belief system evolves as our own, and we're kind of tired of you, like, not only having us as an underclass, but every time we do something you don't like, pushing us down. Picked up their tools, put down their tools, picked up weapons, went north into a civil war known as the Yamasan Uprising. Lasted a year. The Brethren basically didn't know what to do about this, and Lirgen split in two. Yamasa becoming the other nation to the south of the Frog March River. They were independent, but prospered still. Because Lirgen still needed everything Yamasa produced, and Yamasa still needed a bunch of stuff Lirgen produced. So, cool heads basically prevailed. The two nations basically found a way to cohabitate. And this lasted for centuries. So, because Lirgen really didn't have a militaristic idea to them, or expansionistic ideas, so it was fine by them. It's like, look, I guess if we still trade, it's fine with you guys being on your own. And Yamasa's trade and its connections, its merchant houses, using the powers of the Brethren and their predictions and their checking the stars, led to a lot of wealth in the nation. They would advise merchants on their favorable times to send out fleets, profitable markets to sell, basically what is good commodities, what far-flung buyers would want something, horoscopes for status as early as childhood. That's what they focused on. Basically, cultural traditions led parents to carefully consider dates to conceive, even. What's the most auspicious day of conception? And that could bloom into holidays, basically bettering their progeny. And children bear names designate on what day they were born, or month, basically show off, I was born on this really great day. Yeah, Lirgen was interesting. They constructed their capital along the constellation layouts in the streets, with important structures aligning with the stars, and settlements in the region kind of emulating that same style, with very powerful central observatory citadels, central observation citadels. Citadels featuring open parks in the center of the town where people could freely observe the night sky. And the parks hosted extravagant plays and orchestras that utilized both stars and moon in their performances, and travels from all over Western Grund and beyond came to these places. The study of the sky and the planets, mathematics, symbolism was so important to these philosophers. That was Lirgen. And then everything fell. Eridan died. The Eye of Abendigo formed. None of this was able to be predicted, and the cataclysm was huge. Brethren knew something terrible was happening. They got no answers, and they were unprepared for the nation to be obliterated like it was. Lirgen sunk into the Arcadian Ocean in a matter of weeks. It was swift, it was devastating, it was destroyed. Those that stayed behind tried to consult the storms, tried to find out, but they all died. Talk about what happened. And 90% of the population either perished or fled. Perished or died from disease or starvation, and the few survivors fleeing. Lirgen was destroyed. Talk about the capital, Hyrantam, and the Saoc Brotherhood. The Hyrantam. It still exists today. The former capital is half submerged in the flooded wastelands that it remains, with the leaning tops of the city's hundreds of observation towers peeking out of the churning muck. There are Lirgeni that have stayed behind. They strung up catwalks, basic bridges between the towers, a web of ropes and pulleys to transport goods throughout the cities. There are no laws these days. There's a powerful sorcerer from the long expanse known as the Star Savior, who basically keeps the peace in this ruined city, and against the various threats that are around it, the various other creatures and tribes that might be around and threaten them. And so the Star Savior basically keeps the peace in this lawless area where these survivors of the nation and city basically make their homes on houseboats and floating bulwarks, trying their best in this ruined city. So these are some survivors of it, but it's not the Brotherhood. But that's the capital. The once glorious place, now gone. Brethren. Brethren, well, they're a sad tale. On the surface, what happened? They consulted stars, perhaps went mad, and a bunch of them, in a ritual, killed all themselves in 4615. Took their own lives. Committed suicide. Why? On the surface, we don't know about it. But we really do. Because this will link into something that remains. The Din Gate. Basically, the Brethren, they basically dove deep into information, to what they were finding, to find out what they knew about, to discover what was going on. And Brotherhood, though, was tricked. Yes, tricked. And to know that, we will talk more about the Din Gate. We have to talk about the person that controls the Din Gate. A former member of the Brotherhood. A woman by the name of Mehi Hanho. Mehi was a divine and got in contact with a bone sage from the dead planet of Eox. Zarek. So taking a step back here, planets in the Golarion solar system. One of them is Eox, a planet that died and all its people became undead. The bone sages are their leaders. So, I'm a diviner. I'm making contact with a horrific bone sage on an undead planet. Hi. Hey, do you want to know the secrets of immortality and lichdom? And the secrets of the universe? Sure. Cool. Great. So, Mehi was taught by the bone sage, but Mehi was already kind of insane, crazy, kind of out there, but made some predictions that may have been hinting on what was to come. Those predictions that were seen as mad, the calamities, the possible onset of the Eye of Abendigo, which some people over on Eox were kind of predicting. The calamity to come. Thrown off to the side. Soon as the stuff came, hey, May, what more can you have? Oh, I'll help you out. Hey, so how about this? I need a powerful, I need some help that will help basically undo these things. Just do the thing. Do this act of atonement. She used it to turn into a lich. The entire thing of tricking everybody basically to atone for themselves, to hire leadership, to off themselves, that was her thing to go, now I'm a lich. Now I'm at the Din Gate with a connection to Eox. And she's hanging out with her Nosferatu, a servant and lover, and a bunch of a Koboto clan that she slew and raised as skeletons. So the Saoc Brotherhood got screwed over. Now some of them remain. Turns out when the very few escaped, some of them, not the higher leadership, did leave. And some of those original members, their descendants, will return to the Sodden Lands, basically occasionally trying to seek an way to extinguish the eye, restore Lirgen. Have they? No. Many of them kind of go crazy, shatter their minds, basically trying to survive not only physical dangers, but the powerful magics of work there. And that leads us to today. Of course, one of the major legacies is this here, the Din Gate, with our good old friend Mehi kind of sitting in there, plotting horrible things, making deals with the Saoc, with the portal there that leads to Eox. Pleasant shit there. But there is more, and of course you have those members of the Brotherhood that still come back. You still have Hyrantam, where some of the city still remains, with people there. But the drowned city isn't gone. But the core, probably what remains of Lirgen, is now Jaha. bunch of those people went to Jaha, a place of prophecy, secluded there. Some things happened. Go see my video on Jaha. But yeah, connecting up with these people that were there, they're gone. Settling the city, settling it with the lizard folk, where the Ruxi that they've had problems with, but are now working together with, and reclaiming the city from the jungle. So, Lirgen isn't dead. There are people left. It's not a lot. Not much. That's where we kind of leave Lirgen. Similar to Yamasa, the nation isn't completely dead in many ways, but it also is. Both nations are destroyed. Gone. But its people, its culture, some of that remains. As the Yamasans have their farming, Lirgen has his prophecy. Where they found a place of prophecy there, these survivors, and have begun to try to explore it. With the remaining brotherhood of Saoc, who are still out there trying to find a way to save it. With some of the great things they did, like the Lirgen's Glory, the space program, the spaceship they basically sent out. I did not mention that, but again, it's this entire story that's on its own, the magical spaceship Lirgen's Glory, and things happened there. So we weren't going to get into that today, but yeah. It did launch from Lirgen. Things happened. But yeah. And of course, there are people living in the country still, making their way, trying their best to do something there. Yeah. Lirgen is gone, but not completely. There's essences that remain. Kind of like the Sodden Lands. It's a horrible place that, is marked by a gigantic permanent hurricane. But still people try to survive there. And what was there? Little bits of it remain. The great civilization. The great nation, once known as the Land of Fortunes. It's dead. But maybe some of that fortune remains somewhere. Just a little bit. But thank you for joining today. I hope you enjoyed this dive into Lirgen. Another part of the Sodden Lands and the saga of its doom. If you want to see more of my stuff, you can always check me out live on Twitch, where I record videos like this. I have live plays like Fall of Amso Wednesdays at 8. I have my discussion talk show podcasty thing discussing tabletop Saturdays at 6. I have talks and gaming and hanging out with friends. But all that tabletop stuff, if you just want to see that and you can't join me live, you can always check it out on YouTube. If you're on the YouTube side of things, do make sure you do the subscription. Like I said, that is the best way to support. But any of the other things, that's the least you can do to help out. But any of the other support stuff, that'd be great over there. But that's where all my tabletop stuff, my old live plays of TTRPGs, all the different things I did that's tabletop related, end up there. You can check out my social medias, link below. Discord's the best one, but updates the schedule, when I'm live, when I'm putting videos out, all those kind of things. Anyway, until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.